Now, let's bring in my panel, and joining me tonight, thrilled to have National Senator Matt Canavan, as well as Melbourne Lord Mayor Nick Reece. Gentlemen, welcome. Now, guys, had a chat about this in the editorial, and that's the big infighting within the Liberal Party between Alex Hawke and Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price. Matt, I know that you're going to be reluctant to talk about this too much and engage in this, but do you think that Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price should offer up an apology on her remarks from last week to draw a line under a debate which I frankly think has been going on for far too long here?
Look, mate, I want to support all members of my team, both Jacinta and Alex, important members of the coalition, so I don't want to get in between either of them. Look, I think Jacinta does great work. Alex is a senior member of the Liberal Party team. Look, I'll leave it up to Jacinta what she wants to say in response to it.
Fair enough.
As you say, it's been going on, I think, for long enough. I think what we need to get back to here is the core reason for why we're talking about this. The reason we're talking about this is because the Prime Minister hasn't done what he said he would do. Last year, he promised the Australian people that he would halve migration. He hasn't got anywhere close to it. We haven't got the final figures, but at least he's 100,000 odd people over what he promised to bring migration numbers down to. And that's a big reason for why a lot of young people can't afford a home. It's a big reason why we're seeing congestion on our streets. It is a big reason why our hospitals can't seem to see people in any reasonable amount of time. We've had a 6% increase in our population since COVID. Hospital beds have only grown by 3%. So they're the issues that I think we should focus on and certainly not worry about each other. Look, it's done and dusted. As I say, I want to focus on the people out there that are listening to your program, not all the various people in my team.
Yeah, well, Matt, I think you're right. I think this has gone on for far too long here. I mean, the remarks were made on Thursday. It's now Monday night. We're going to have another news cycle tomorrow on this. But Nicholas Reece, come on now. You are the mayor of Melbourne here, and this is a city that is undergoing all sorts of population pressures itself. Labor has not shown any bottle when it comes to doing anything about this. Surely as a Lord Mayor, seeing the impacts on the ground of growth in population without adequate infrastructure, this is a big problem.
Well, James, I mean, I think Australia is the most successful immigration nation in the world. We're the most successful multicultural nation in the world. I think Australia can be bigger and better, and I think Melbourne, my hometown, can be bigger and better as well. And I think, the LNP, Liberal National Party, in the last couple of days has kicked yet another spectacular home goal. I mean, not content with losing the last election by a record amount, having successfully alienated, female voters, Chinese voters, inner city voters, public servants, they're now gone and alienated the Indian community of Australia. At the City of Melbourne, we've got Rashina Campbell as our Deputy Lord Mayor. She's a Liberal, and you could not find a harder working, smarter, more community-minded person in the ranks of Australia's elected officials. She also happens to be someone of Indian cultural background and, as I said, a Liberal. And, now she's been told by other senior people in the LNP political movement that people like her are part of some sort of Labor Party stack in this country. I mean, can it get any worse for the Liberal and Conservative side of politics?
Well,
may be any more stupid in what they are doing in this country.
Sure. Look, I get the outrage, and I get you're trying to make a big point about this, but at the same time, we keep hearing this sort of idea that we're the most successful multicultural nation in the world. And yet, Nick Reece, I keep seeing every week, I see these ethnically based protests tearing apart our cities. I saw people duking it out on Bondi Beach yesterday. I see, people duking it out in the streets. I see anti-Semitic attacks. And I see people saying, maybe we need a bit of a pause and reflect and recalibrate what we're all about here, because we can't keep saying that, Nicholas Reece, when all of this stuff is going on in our streets.
Look, I mean, I think we all saw the scenes on Bondi Beach, and they were disturbing. I'm not sure if it was Israel versus Gaza or Lakemba versus Bondi. I think there was multiple friction points at work there. But I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that immigration has helped build this nation. I mean, I came to Australia from another country, James.
So did I. So did I.
We've worked hard and we've built a great country together. And yes, I do agree with you on this point, James. We need to have a well-managed, controlled immigration system. I think that is absolutely critical. And I say that.
Nicholas, can I pause you there? I want to pause you there, Nick, because Matt Canavan and Party Central there wants to jump in here. What were you going to say there, Matt?
Yeah, I'm at Party Central here in Billawheeler. It's going off here on a Monday night at Billawheeler Hotel. It's probably more life than down in Melbourne. Sorry, Nick. I think you guys have recovered. Sorry, I got to get that dig in there. But look, it's not being well managed at the moment. And I think people are sick and tired of the Labor Party thinking a slogan is substitute for good policy. We keep hearing that, we're the best multicultural country in the world. We're built on immigration. Yeah, but how does that relate, again, going back to what the Prime Minister promised he'd do? We continue to have record numbers of people arrive here. And what we need to do is have policies that actually make people's lives better. Saying that migration is great, saying that multiculturalism is fantastic, does not help people who can't see a doctor in their hospital. It does not help people whose kids can't afford a home. And so fix that problem. Just focus on that. It doesn't help the fact that we are being pulled apart by all these ethnic divisions. I just think our welcome mat here is being worn out. Nick is right that traditionally we've done a very good job. But that doesn't mean, just because we've done a good job at taking in migrants in the past, there's no guarantee that that's going to continue in the future, particularly if we keep taking in at a rate of 500,000 new people in net terms a year, a whole city of Canberra every year. We just can't do that. And then we will become a much less cohesive society if we continue like this. We'll become like the UK is at the moment and parts of Europe. I don't want that to happen here. So we've got to get this genie back in the bottle ASAP. We've got to bring these numbers back down, as the Prime Minister promised he would do, and have a much more manageable migration program for our country's needs.
I'll tell you what, Matt, I'm just hoping that some joker there at the Billawheeler Hotel doesn't ask them to put on Eagle Rock, because that could be absolute chaos here on live TV. But Nicholas Reece, I think Matt makes a very good point here. And I want to go back to these protests in Bondi. We saw those. How long is this going to go on? And let me ask you this as a mayor, because we had a big talk about this today at my other workplace about, do we need to say some places like Bondi Beach, like the Harbour Bridge, they're exclusion zones. You're not allowed to protest at these really iconic sites. Go have a protest somewhere else, but please stop hijacking our national symbols, which Bondi Beach is one of them, for your own causes.
Oh, I think you've got to be very careful in this space, James. I do think these protests cause enormous inconvenience, and I would like to see them better managed. But once you start, saying things like you can't protest in these iconic locations, I do worry that you're starting to get onto a slippery slope. So, it starts with Bondi Beach, and then you're going to say Sydney Harbour, then you're going to say Bourke Street, Melbourne. Before you know it, you can't protest in this country anymore. So I think you've got to be really careful.
You're not allowed to go into Parliament House and start protesting. The politicians don't want to get interrupted. All right, you got to get approval. You can go do it in the mall and the front of Parliament House. We've got to get approval for that. You can't just rock up in Parliament House and do it. Why should you be able to rock up at the Sydney Harbour Bridge? It's a major thoroughfare. Do you think people should be able to protest down the Bruce Highway?
It's
just ridiculous.
But Matt, I do take
reasonable restrictions here.
I do take Nick Reece's concerns, because while we talk about the concerns we have about becoming like Britain with all of the protests and the division, and a lot worse they have there, I also worry about free speech a bit. But gents, I want to move on to, because there's so much else. A little while ago, former Prime Minister John Howard was on Sharri Markson's program. He slammed the Albanese government's net zero obsession. Here's a little of what he had to say.
I think the world is making a mistake by sort of going overboard about climate change. What I mean by that is that I'm not persuaded that the world will come to an end if we don't reduce carbon emissions in a radical way.
Yeah. So abandon net zero, the 2050
Well, that
targets.
means that I'm doubtful that net zero is worth the price we're paying for it.
Lord Mayor Nicholas Reece, let me ask this of you. Will the world come to an end if Australia doesn't meet its climate reduction targets?
Well, I mean, John Howard, he just keeps on giving for the Liberal Party, doesn't he? Not content having lost the 2007 federal election by refusing to commit Australia to the Kyoto target, he now wants the Liberals to lose the next election by walking away from the Paris climate emission targets. I mean, the fact
I'm
is,
not sure.
a commitment to net zero
2007
by 2050, a commitment to net zero by 2050 shows that you are a political party that believes in modernity, that you believe in progress and doing Australia's fair share to meeting our requirement to get to net zero so that we stop the environmental damage to our planet as a result of excessive fossil fuel and carbon emissions.
Nicholas Reece, I was working in Parliament House in 2007. I don't recall that election being about Kyoto. I think it was more about work choices and the it's time factor. But Matt, what do you reckon? How do you remember that?
Well, I don't think there's many politicians around that have a better sense of the thoughts of the Australian people than John Howard. I still think he absolutely does it. And the way he sums it up there, is it worth it? That's ultimately the question that has to be asked here when the rest of the world is not pursuing net zero. So it's not going to lead to the environmental benefits that Nick is trying to hoodwink into people into thinking that will happen. That won't happen if we act on our own. But of course, we'll be left with the enormous costs of reaching net zero. We know those costs now are very high because the promises that were made to us when we signed up to net zero have not been delivered. A bit like the migration story I said before, the Prime Minister promised to cut our power bills. He promised that we'd have thousands of new jobs in new industries like hydrogen, and I'm here right here in the centre of that in central Queensland, where we were promised a hydrogen hub. We promised we'd have these thousands of jobs, and we've just been deserted by a Labor Party that makes promises and then just leaves people to pick up the pieces. And so why should we have to pay these enormous costs in our country if it's not going to lead to any environmental benefits? This ridiculous idea that unless we hit net zero emissions in 2050 at a precise time, the world's going to end. We're not part of the modern world, apparently. I mean, give me
indeed.
a break.
I mean,
hang on, sorry. No.
People just want their lives made better, Nick. They can't afford their groceries. They're struggling to pay their mortgage. Their lives are much, much worse than they were just a few years ago. And you have these stupid slogans that mean nothing to anybody. Just do things that help people improve their lives. And the government is not doing that for us right now.